Hairspray coats the back of Naya's throat, a sticky film tasting exactly like fake promises. She swallows it down with flat champagne. The bridal suite at St. Jude's Cathedral is a claustrophobic box of peeling gold wallpaper, suffocated by the heavy funeral parlor sweetness of stargazer lilies. Nya sits at the vanity, staring at a stranger in the mirror. The ivory Mikado silk dress feels less like a gown and more like a beautifully constructed plaster cast. It forces her spine rigid, demanding the perfect posture of a corporate attorney's wife. It is safe. Alvaro is safe. He prefers mild salsa, wears beige slacks on Sundays, and checks his tire pressure weekly. When Naya agreed to marry him, she wasn't blindingly in love. She was exhausted. After a youth spent chasing destructive sparks, Alvaro offered a quiet room with a locked door, a predictable future. She checks her phone. 2:14 p.m. The ceremony begins in 16 minutes. Alvaro's last text arrived 3 hours ago. Running an errand. Love you. See you at the altar. A cold knot settles beneath her sternum. Alvaro is never late. He is the man who arrives at the airport 4 hours early. He does not run errands on his wedding day. Heavy, measured footsteps sound in the hallway. They lack the frantic, staccato rhythm of her younger sister's heels. Naya barely registers the discrepancy before the brass doorknob turns. The door swings shut. The deadbolt engages with a sharp click. Chloe, I swear to God, if you lost the rings again, Nia starts, her voice tight, reaching back to hold the unzipped halves of her bodice together. The air shifts violently. The temperature plummets, and the sickening scent of dying lilies is instantly overtaken by something darker. Clove cigarettes, rain-dampened wool, and polished leather. Large, warm hands brush her bare shoulders. Nya freezes, her lungs seizing. The hands are rough, the calloused knuckles snagging faintly against the delicate silk. They belong to a massive man, a solid wall of muscle in bespoke charcoal wool who now blocks the only exit. Before she can pull away, he grips the base of the zipper. The metal teeth bite together with a harsh rasp, dragging upward, sealing her inside the gown. A broad chest brushes her spine. Your groom's not coming, little dove, he murmurs. I am. He leans down. His breath brushes the shell of her ear. Your groom's not coming, little dove, a voice murmurs. Low, raspy, grinding like stones at the bottom of a riverbed. I am. Panic, raw and ugly, spikes through her nervous system. Nia doesn't scream. She reacts with the messy, uncoordinated violence of a cornered animal. She elbows backward, hard, aiming for ribs. She hits something that feels like granite. The man grunts, barely shifting, and catches her elbow in one massive hand. He doesn't squeeze. He just holds it, an immovable force. As Naya spins around, her heel catching in the heavy tulle underskirt. She stumbles, knocking a glass bottle of perfume off the vanity. It shatters on the hardwood floor, a sharp crash that floods the room with the cloying stench of vanilla and jasmine. Don't, the man says softly. Nia stares at him, her chest heaving against the tight confinement of the silk. He is older than Alvaro, late 30s perhaps. His face is a brutal map of hard lines and quiet violence. A faded scar bisects his left eyebrow. Dark, heavily hooded eyes track her every twitch with the dispassionate focus of a predator watching a wounded bird. His suit is immaculate, tailored to hide the bulk of a shoulder holster, but the subtle bulge beneath his left arm is unmistakable. Who the hell are you? Naya chokes out. Her voice cracks. The polished, elegant bride is gone. She sounds like a terrified child. My name is Grant Costa. He releases her elbow and takes a slow step back, giving her space. It's a calculated move. He knows he owns the room. And you are currently experiencing the consequences of your fiancé's gambling addiction. Nia's brain flatlines. What? Grant reaches into the inner pocket of his jacket. Naya flinches, expecting a gun. Instead, he pulls out a thick, folded stack of papers and tosses it onto the vanity. It lands with a heavy, final thud next to her discarded phone. Alvaro Hughes owes my employers $4.2 million, Grant states, his tone conversational, as if they are discussing the weather. He's been bleeding his firm's escrow accounts to feed a baccarat habit for 2 years. He ran out of firm money. He came to us. You're lying. The denial is automatic, reflexive, but even as she says it, tiny, ignored details from the past year bubble to the surface like corpses in a lake. Alvaro's sudden anxiety, the secretive phone calls, the night she found him vomiting in the guest bathroom, claiming food poisoning but shaking with cold sweats. Grant watches her face, reading the realization blooming in her eyes. He doesn't offer pity. I don't lie, Nya, he says, using her first name with a familiarity that makes her skin crawl. Alvaro missed his final deadline at noon today. He attempted to board a flight to Buenos Aires at 1:15. Nya looks at the papers on the vanity. Her hands tremble so violently she has to clench them into fists to stop the shaking. Attempted? He didn't make it past TSA. Grant steps closer, his heavy leather shoes crunching over the broken glass of the perfume bottle. He doesn't even look down. He's currently sitting in a soundproof shipping container in the port of Baltimore, crying remarkably loudly for a grown man. Bile rises in Naya's throat. She tastes the mint she chewed 20 minutes ago, sour and acidic. She grabs the edge of the vanity, her knees threatening to buckle. "Why are you here?" she whispers. "If you have him, why come to me?" Grant's dark eyes drift over her. He takes in the intricate lace, the perfect hair, the pale, terrified column of her neck. Because dead men don't pay debts. And while Alvaro is useless to me, his position isn't. My organization requires a certain legitimacy in this city. A respectable front. A law firm is useful. A judge's daughter is even more useful. He stops inches from her. The smell of clove and iron is overpowering. Alvaro's debt is forgiven. In exchange, I take his life, his assets, and his wedding. Grant tilts his head. We walk out that door. We smile for the cameras. We say I do, and Alvaro gets to keep his kneecaps. Silence stretches between them, thick and unbearable. The distant, muffled sound of a pipe organ warming up bleeds through the heavy walls of the suite. Nia stares at Grant's shoes, black Oxfords, spotless, except for a faint speck of dried mud near the sole. Her mind races, desperately searching for an exit strategy, a loophole, a waking moment from this bizarre nightmare. No. She says. The word lacks force. It falls limply between them. Grant reaches out. Nia flinches, but he only picks up her discarded lipstick from the vanity. He rolls the gold tube between his thumb and forefinger. No is a luxury you don't possess, he replies, his voice devoid of anger. That is what terrifies her most, the utter lack of emotion. It isn't a threat. It's a statement of physical law, like gravity. If you scream, my men outside this door will silence you. If you refuse, I make one phone call, and Alvaro is submerged in the Patapsco River. Tomorrow, the press will receive an anonymous tip regarding the millions Alvaro stole from his clients. Your father's reputation as a judge will be dragged through the mud for failing to notice his son-in-law was a criminal. Your family is ruined. Alvaro is dead. He sets the lipstick down. Or you put your arm through mine. You smile. You become Mrs. Grant Costa. You can't just step into a wedding, she snaps, a spark of desperate anger finally piercing her shock. The priest, my family, everyone is expecting Alvaro. Grant's mouth twitches. Not quite a smile, but a shadow of one. The priest, Father Thomas, owes me for covering up his nephew's DUI last spring. He will marry whoever is standing in front of him. As for your guests, they will be shocked. There will be whispers. But your father will not make a scene in front of the mayor and 3 state senators. He values decorum too much. He'll play along until the reception. By then, it's done. He has thought of everything. The realization hits Naya with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't a last-minute improvisation. Grant had orchestrated this. He had let Alvaro run, just to trap him, just to back Naya into this exact corner. She looks at the mirror. Her reflection shows a pale, terrified woman wrapped in expensive silk, staring at a mobster in a bespoke suit. I don't even know you, she whispers, a tear finally breaking free and cutting a hot track through her foundation. Grant steps closer. He pulls a folded white handkerchief from his breast pocket and gently presses it to her cheek, catching the tear before it ruins her makeup. His touch is shockingly steady. The linen smells faintly of cedar. You know me better than you knew him, Naya, Grant says softly. I told you the truth. He He drops the soiled handkerchief onto the vanity. He checks his watch, a heavy steel Rolex that catches the harsh overhead light. It's 2:28. Time to walk. Nia's legs feel like lead. She turns away from the mirror, her heavy train dragging uselessly across the broken glass on the floor. She expects to feel righteous fury, a burning desire to fight. But the truth is uglier, simpler. She is terrified. She doesn't want Alvaro to die. She doesn't want her father's career destroyed. She wants to survive. Grant extends his left arm. The dark wool sleeve waits for her. Nia looks at his hand, tracing the thick raised scar that runs across his knuckles. Slowly, her hand shaking so badly her bracelets clatter against each other, she slides her fingers into the crook of his elbow. His arm is solid, radiating heat through the fabric. "Smile, little dove," he murmurs, turning toward the door. "It's the happiest day of your life." He unlatches the deadbolt. The door swings open. The hallway is brightly lit, smelling of floor wax and old wood. Two men in dark suits stand on either side of the doorway. They don't look at Nia. They fall into step a discreet distance behind them. As they approach the vestibule, the massive wooden doors to the sanctuary loom ahead. The organ music is louder now, swelling into the familiar traditional march. Through the crack in the doors, Nia can see the back of her father's head, waiting to walk her down the second half of the aisle. "My father will try to kill you," she whispers, staring straight ahead. "He can take a number," Grant replies smoothly. The ushers, two of Alvaro's frat brothers, freeze as Grant and Nia step into the vestibule. Their jaws drop, eyes darting from Grant to Nia, utterly paralyzed by the deviation from the script. "Open the doors," Grant commands. He doesn't yell. He doesn't have to. One of the ushers scrambles to pull the heavy brass handles. The doors swing wide. The sanctuary is blinding. Sunlight pours through the stained glass windows, painting the wooden pews in harsh streaks of crimson and gold. 300 faces turn toward the back of the church. Nia feels the collective intake of breath. It sucks the air from the massive room. She sees her mother's hand fly to her mouth. She sees her father standing halfway down the aisle, his face draining of color, taking a step forward before freezing. She sees the empty space at the altar where Alvaro was supposed to be. Her grip on Grant's arm tightens until her nails dig into his wool sleeve. She wants to bolt. She wants to tear off the suffocating dress and run out into the humid city street. Instead, Grant steps forward, pulling her with him. The organist, unaware of the visual chaos, strikes the heavy, booming chords of the bridal chorus. They walk. Every step is an agonizing eternity. The rustle of her silk train sounds like a dying gasp in the sudden, oppressive silence of the congregation. The whispers start around the fourth pew, a low, confused buzzing, like a hive of hornets waking up. Who is that? Where is Alvaro? What's going on? Nia forces her eyes to lock onto the altar. She doesn't look at her friends. She doesn't look at Alvaro's weeping mother. She just breathes in the smell of clove and cedar radiating from the man beside her, anchoring herself to the terrifying reality of his presence. He walks with a slow, measured confidence, completely unfazed by the 300 pairs of eyes burning into them. He isn't a groom. He is a conqueror surveying captured territory. When they reach her father, Judge White's face is a mask of suppressed rage. He opens his mouth to speak, to stop this madness. Grant doesn't stop. He doesn't hand Nia over. He simply glides past her father, dragging Nia with him toward the altar, ignoring tradition, ignoring the rules. They stop at the steps. Father Thomas stands behind the pulpit. The priest looks nauseous, his hands gripping his prayer book so tightly his knuckles are white. He looks at Grant, then down at his book, sweat beading on his forehead. "Dearly beloved," the priest's voice cracks over the microphone, trembling violently. Grant turns to Nia. He reaches up, his scarred fingers catching the edge of her delicate lace veil. He flips it back over her head, exposing her bare face to the harsh light. His dark eyes lock onto hers, stripping away the crowd, the church, the entire world until there is only the space between them. "Till death do us part," Grant whispers, low enough that only she can hear. Nia closes her eyes, a single, final tear slipping down her cheek as the priest begins to read her death sentence disguised as a blessing. Flashbulbs explode in a blinding, erratic rhythm. The reception hall at the Oakbrook Country Club smells of roasted tenderloin and quiet panic. 300 guests chew their food with the slow, mechanical precision of hostages. No one clinks their glasses. No one demands a speech. The jazz band in the corner plays a Cole Porter medley at a tempo just slightly too fast, the drummer's brushwork frantic against the snare. Nia sits at the center of the head table, a porcelain doll positioned beside a bomb. Her jaw aches from holding a frozen, hollow smile for 2 hours. Beside her, Grant cuts his steak. The knife scrapes against the gold-rimmed china, a sharp metallic sound that makes the groomsman at the far end of the table flinch. He eats with methodical efficiency. He does not look like a man who just hijacked a wedding. He looks like a man having dinner on a Tuesday. Her plate is untouched. The asparagus is limp. The mashed potatoes have formed a stiff, glossy skin. "You need to eat," Grant says. He doesn't look up from his plate. "I'm not hungry," Nia replies. Her voice is a dry rasp. She reaches for her water goblet, but her fingers are trembling so badly she pulls them back, hiding her hands in the heavy folds of her silk lap. Grant sets his fork down. He shifts his weight, turning his broad shoulders toward her. The movement is subtle, but it forces the entire room to hold its breath. He picks up a small, untouched dinner roll from a silver basket, breaks it in half, and places it directly onto her bread plate. "Your blood sugar is crashing. You're shaking. Eat the bread, Nia, or I will feed it to you in front of the mayor." It is not a threat of violence, but of humiliation. Nia stares at his scarred knuckles, then at the bread. The sheer, suffocating control he wields over the room is paralyzing. She picks up the roll. It tastes like ash and yeast, requiring a monumental effort to chew and swallow. A shadow falls over their table. Nia looks up to see her father. Judge William White's face is a mottled, dangerous shade of plum. The veins in his neck press against his starched collar. He has spent the last hour managing the crisis, glad-handing politicians, whispering reassurances of an unexpected private arrangement to the city's elite. Now the mask is slipping. "I want a word," the judge says. His voice is a low, serrated whisper meant only for them, in the coat room. "Now." Grant calmly wipes his mouth with a linen napkin. "I'm currently enjoying my meal, Judge. If you have a wedding blessing to offer, you can give it here." "You arrogant son of a Judge White," leans forward, planting his hands flat on the white tablecloth. "I don't know what kind of extortion you're running, Costa, but I have the chief of police on speed dial. This ends tonight. I'm taking my daughter home, and you are going to disappear." Nia's heart hammers against her ribs. She looks at her father, waiting for the familiar surge of safety his authority usually brings. It doesn't come. Instead, she feels a sickening wave of dread. Her father doesn't know. Grant leans back in his chair. He doesn't raise his voice. He simply lowers its pitch until it vibrates like a warning siren. "Call him," Grant says. He gestures loosely toward her father's pocket. "Call Chief Miller. But before he dispatches a black and white, you should probably ask him to check the audit logs for Alvaro's escrow accounts. Specifically, the accounts tied to the union pension fund your son-in-law drained to zero." Judge White freezes. The color abruptly drains from his face, leaving his skin an unhealthy, waxy yellow. $4.2 million, William. Grant continues, his dark eyes locking onto the older man. Gone. Evaporated at a baccarat table. Now, I have forgiven that debt. I hold the markers. If you cause a scene, if you try to annul this marriage, those markers go to the state prosecutor. Alvaro goes to federal prison. The unions realize you, the brilliant judge, let a degenerate gambler manage their retirement. Your career is over. Your pension is seized. Your legacy is dirt. Silence stretches over the table, thick and suffocating. Nia watches her father. She watches the man who taught her to ride a bike, who handed her a law school diploma, rapidly calculate the math of his own survival. He looks at Nia. His eyes are filled with a sickening, apologetic defeat. He isn't going to fight. Judge White swallows hard, his Adam's apple bobbing awkwardly. I need a drink. He turns and walks away, his posture suddenly stooped, looking a decade older than he had that morning. Nia stares after him, a cold, hard knot forming in her stomach. The realization hits her with the force of a physical blow. Alvaro had traded her for his kneecaps. Her father had just traded her for his legacy. The men in her life, the safe, respectable men, were cowards. She turns her head slowly to look at Grant. He is watching her, his expression unreadable, calculating her reaction. "There are no white knights, little dove," he says softly. He reaches over, his thumb brushing a stray crumb from the edge of her plate. "Only men who admit what they are, and men who lie about it. Eat your bread." For the first time since he walked into her bridal suite, Nia doesn't cry. A strange, bitter heat rises in her chest. She picks up her fork, she stabs a piece of cold asparagus, and she eats. Tires hiss against wet asphalt. The rain started an hour ago, a sudden summer downpour that slicked the Chicago streets with a greasy, neon-lit sheen. Nia sits in the cavernous back seat of a black Maybach, staring out the tinted window. The city slides past in a blur of red taillights and glowing storefronts. She reaches down and blindly kicks off her white satin heels. They hit the carpeted floorboard with a dull thud. Her toes are blistered, wrapped in agonizing friction burns from 6 hours of forced smiling and stiff, agonizing steps. She pulls her knees up slightly, her massive silk skirt pooling around her like a deflated parachute. Grant sits on the opposite side of the bench. He has removed his suit jacket, tossing it casually over the leather armrest. His white dress shirt is unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the thick column of his throat. He holds a crystal tumbler of scotch, the amber liquid swaying with the motion of the car. He hasn't spoken since they left the country club. "Where are we going?" Nia finally asks. Her voice is raspy, exhausted. "My home, downtown. The penthouse at the Street Regis," Grant answers. He takes a slow sip of his drink. "Am I a prisoner there?" He turns his head, the passing streetlights casting shifting shadows across his scarred brow. "You are my wife. You have full access to the accounts, the cars, the staff. You can go wherever you want, buy whatever you want. Except a divorce lawyer. Except that," he agrees smoothly. Nia lets out a dry, humorless laugh. She leans her head back against the cool glass of the window. "Why me, really? You could have just killed Alvaro and taken his assets. You didn't need to marry me." The judge's daughter narrative is a good cover, but it's not strictly necessary for a man like you, so why? Grant stares at his glass for a long moment. He swirls the scotch, watching the liquid coat the sides of the crystal. 6 months ago, Grant begins, his voice dropping into that low, grinding cadence. "I attended a charity gala for the Children's Hospital. You were there with Alvaro. A waiter dropped a tray of champagne glasses directly behind you. It sounded like a gunshot." Nia frowns, searching her memory. She remembers the gala. She remembers the crash. "Alvaro screamed," Grant says, his lip curling in a micro-expression of absolute disgust. He ducked, spilled his drink all over himself, and tried to hide behind a decorative fern. Half the room jumped. "But you didn't." Grant's dark eyes lock onto hers across the dim space of the car. "You turned around. You didn't flinch. You didn't scream. You evaluated the threat, realized it was just a clumsy kid in a vest, and handed him a napkin to clean his bleeding hand. While your fiancé cowered like a beaten dog, you managed the chaos." He takes another sip of scotch. "In my world, Nia, women who panic are liabilities. Women who stay cold under pressure are empires waiting to be built. Alvaro didn't deserve you. He couldn't even protect himself, let alone you." The car begins a smooth descent into a subterranean parking garage. The fluorescent lights overhead strobe through the interior. Nia stares at him, her chest tight. He wasn't talking about love, he was talking about architecture. He saw her as a load-bearing pillar for his chaotic life. It is twisted, it is objectifying. And yet, deep in the darkest, most cynical corner of her brain, she acknowledges the brutal honesty of it. The Maybach rolls to a stop. The driver cuts the engine. They take a private elevator in silence, the numbers ticking upward to the 72nd floor. When the doors open, they step into a massive, minimalist space of dark wood, poured concrete, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering grid of the city. It smells like ozone and expensive leather. "Guest room is down the hall to the left," Grant says, walking toward a sleek marble kitchen counter. He sets his glass down. "Your bags from your apartment were brought over this afternoon." Nia stops in the middle of the living room. "Guest room?" Grant turns around, leaning his hips against the marble counter. He crosses his arms. I hijacked your life, Naya. I am a criminal. I am not a monster. You sleep where you want. He turns back to the sink, turning on the tap to rinse his glass. Nia stands in the center of the vast room. The $5,000 of Mikado silk suddenly feels 1,000 times heavier than it did in the church. The rigid boning of the corset digs sharply into her bruised ribs. She is exhausted. Her scalp throbs. She just wants to breathe. She reaches back, trying to grasp the tiny metal zipper at the nape of her neck. Her fingers are stiff, catching awkwardly on the silk. She pulls, but the zipper is stuck, jammed against a folded piece of fabric. She twists her shoulders, a frustrated, pathetic sound escaping her throat as she struggles with her own armor. Footsteps sound against the hardwood floor. Grant stops behind her. He doesn't ask permission. He simply reaches out his large, warm hands, gently swatting her trembling fingers away. Nia freezes. The scent of clove cigarettes and rain washes over her, exactly as it had in the bridal suite. But the panic is gone, replaced by a heavy, profound exhaustion. Grant's callous knuckles brush against her bare spine. He grips the base of the zipper. With a smooth, practiced motion, he pulls downward. The metal teeth separate with a soft, hissing sound. The rigid corset instantly releases its death grip on her ribs. Oxygen floods Nia's lungs in a massive, shuddering rush. The dress goes slack, slipping a fraction of an inch down her shoulders. Grant steps back immediately, putting distance between them. Good night, Nia. He doesn't look back as he walks down the dark hallway toward the master suite. Naya stands alone in the silence of the penthouse, the ruined wedding dress hanging loose on her frame, staring out at the city that now belongs to the stranger who bought her. Thank you for diving into this dark, emotional journey with us. If Nia's intense story and Grant's brutal honesty kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button to let us know. Don't forget to share this video with your fellow romance and drama lovers, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping, immersive audio stories. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Naya's shoes? See you in the next dark chapter.